Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring the absolute horrors of evolution lurking just beneath the ocean's surface, layer by terrifying layer. You know, we so often look up at the stars, wondering what alien life might look like, but we completely ignore the absolute nightmares that have evolved right here on our own planet. So we're going to explore the deep, dark aquatic zones of Earth and look at exactly what it takes to survive in an environment that literally wants to destroy you.
To do this, we're going on a spatial descent. We'll start with the horrors of the shallows, drop into the twilight zone, plunge down into the monsters of the midnight zone, cross the abyssal plain, and finally bottom out with the terrors of the trenches. Now, if you thought you were safe near the sunny surface, well, what we're about to look at is going to completely change your mind. We all kind of associate shallow water with, beautiful coral reefs and harmless little fish, right? But biology has a very dark side, even up in the sunlight.
That brings us to Section 1, Horrors of the Shallows. This is where body snatchers and violent predators are basically hiding in plain sight.
Take the horrifying 3-step takeover of the tongue-eating louse. This thing literally enters through a fish's gills, latches onto the base of the tongue, and severs the blood vessels until the host's actual tongue dies and just falls off. Then, the parasite hooks its own body right onto the stump, effectively becoming the fish's brand new living tongue. The fish actually uses the louse to grab food, all while the parasite just sits there, feeding on the fish's blood and mucus. It is absolutely wild, the only known parasite in the world to entirely replace a host's organ. And what's truly terrifying here is how so many of these shallow water nightmares feel like they were ripped straight out of science fiction. First up, we've got the parasitic barnacle, which acts exactly like that zombie fungus from The Last of Us. It injects its cells into a crab, grows roots right into the crab's brain, chemically castrates it, and then actually forces the crab to lovingly groom the parasite's eggs. No way, right? Then there's the sarcastic fringehead. Looks like a totally normal fish, right? Up until it unhinges its jaw to these terrifying proportions to mouth wrestle rivals. It looks exactly like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. And finally, the bobbit worm. This is a 10-foot-long, completely blind monster that bursts up from the ocean floor like a creature from Tremors. It snaps these scissor-like jaws so incredibly fast that it can cleanly slice a fish completely in half. All right, Section 2, the Twilight Zone. Let's move further down and see how hunting methods become aggressively alien as the light fades out. Down here, both of the creatures we're looking at share a direct, undeniable resemblance to the terrifying xenomorphs from the movie Alien. On one side, you have the goblin shark. It doesn't just bite, its entire jaw is mounted on elastic ligaments, so it actually detaches from its skull and slingshots forward out of its face to snatch prey. It is literally exactly like the alien's inner jaw. On the other side, we have the prem bug. This thing literally hollows out a living, gelatinous creature called a salp, eats its internal organs while it's still alive, climbs inside, and then drives the empty, fleshly corpse around like a living submarine just to raise its eggs. Nature is ruthless. Now, down in the Twilight Zone, most bioluminescence is blue or green, just because those colors travel best in water. But the stoplight loosejaw, it basically hacked the system. It produces a bright red beam of light right from beneath its eyes. And since almost no other deep-sea creatures can even see the color red, the loosejaw effectively has an invisible sniper laser. It strikes in absolute secrecy, shooting its totally bottomless, fleshless lower jaw outward to impale unaware victims on these crazy needle-like teeth. And just think about the sheer absurdity of this next evolutionary paradox. The Sloane's viperfish actually holds a Guinness World Record for the largest teeth relative to head size. Its fangs are so enormous, they literally do not fit in its mouth. To survive without accidentally piercing its own brain, the fish is forced to keep its teeth on the outside of its face. When it's finally time to hunt, it unhinges its neck completely backwards, swimming at super high speeds to impale prey like a living, swimming spear. Moving on to Section 3, Monsters of the Midnight Zone. Sinking even deeper into total darkness, we enter a world where finding a meal, or even a mate, requires extreme biological sacrifices. The pressure is mounting, and the rules of life are getting so much weirder. Now, we all know the anglerfish for its famous glowing lure, right? But the truly disturbing part is actually its mating process. See, finding a mate in a massive pitch-black void is practically impossible. So when a tiny, newly hatched male finally finds a giant female, he bites into her and literally never lets go. An enzyme actually dissolves his mouth and her skin, completely fusing their bloodstreams together. The male's eyes, fins, and internal organs just melt away until he essentially ceases to exist as an individual animal. He just lives out the rest of his days as an attached, permanent parasitic sperm bank.
Let's talk about the number 150 feet. That is the staggering length of the deep-sea siphonophore. It might look like a long, glowing string, but it is actually a giant, glowing net of death made up of thousands of mutated, cloned organisms called zooids. They all share the exact same DNA and single nerve cord, essentially acting as a massive collective superorganism that's longer than a blue whale. It just waits there, ready to paralyze anything that happens to swim into it.
So what happens when a massive creature dies way up above? Well, it plummets down into the midnight zone, creating what scientists call a whale fall. And this sudden feast brings out the zombie worms. These creepy crawlers have no mouths, no stomachs, and no teeth. Instead, they secrete a potent acid to literally melt solid bone, pushing these root-like tendrils deep inside to digest the marrow. And the really wild part? It is only the females doing this. Dozens, sometimes hundreds of microscopic males live permanently imprisoned inside a single female's gelatinous tube. To put the black swallower's sheer gluttony into perspective for you, this fish rarely grows over 10 inches long, but it routinely swallows prey up to 10 times its own mass. It unhinges its jaw and effectively walks its mouth over the struggling victim, expanding its stomach like a giant transparent balloon. But it often gets way too greedy. The swallowed prey can actually start to decompose before it's digested, which inflates the swallower with decomposition gases, violently rocketing it all the way up to the ocean surface to its death. Talk about biting off more than you can chew.
Okay, so you've probably heard of the giant squid, but the colossal squid is heavier, thicker, and literally armed for war. Using eyes the size of dinner plates to spot the faint glowing bioluminescence of diving sperm whales, this apex predator fights back. Instead of just having teeth on its suckers, it has swiveling razor-sharp hooks. It violently rips into the whales in these pitch-black waters, leaving massive, deep circular scars on any whale that is lucky enough to actually make it back to the surface.
This brings us to Section 4, the Abyssal Plain. We are now descending into a crushing wasteland, where the sheer lack of food turns otherwise passive creatures into terrifying hunters. Down in the abyss, creatures often experience something called deep-sea gigantism. Take the giant sea spider, for example. These things grow to the size of dinner plates, with leg spans of up to 20 inches. But because they are practically nothing but legs, they don't even have a body large enough to hold their organs. I'm not kidding, they keep their digestive tracts and reproductive organs inside their limbs. They just stalk across the seafloor using a massive tube-like proboscis to suck the internal juices right out of their prey. In this completely desolate environment, evolution has perfectly optimized the ability to turn other living creatures into a drinkable slurry. And we see two wildly different, but equally horrifying, approaches to this. First, the pelagic ribbon worm. It has no face, but when it senses prey, it violently explodes a massive, inside-out throat straight out of its forehead. It stabs its victim and injects toxins to completely liquefy its organs. Meanwhile, carnivorous abyssal sponges take a different route. They use microscopic, Velcro-like glass hooks to snag drifting prey. The sponge's cells then physically migrate to envelop the prey alive, slowly dissolving it into a liquid soup. Now, if you can imagine a single-celled amoeba scaled all the way up to the size of a dinner plate, you have the xenophore. They look a bit like rotting sponges scattered across the seafloor. But what's truly bizarre about them is that they secrete this slimy cement to glue their own poop and sediment together to build an armored shell. Acting like biological sponges, they naturally concentrate heavy metals like lead and uranium straight from the seawater, transforming into literal radioactive clumps of waste sitting on the seafloor. Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Terrors of the Trenches. We've reached the absolute bottom of the world, where extreme pressure fundamentally changes the physical rules of life. Down at this crushing depth in the Challenger Deep, we're talking 35,000 feet below the surface, you'll find the Hyandella gigas. Because the trenches are basically a giant dead end for falling organic matter, these pale, blind crustaceans swarm in the millions, and they are hyper-aggressive scavengers. When a carcass drops in, they form a writhing mountain of limbs, stripping it down to the absolute bone in just hours. And if the food runs out, well, they turn on each other, swarming and eating their own kind alive. Then there's the reproductive cycle of the head spoonworm, which adds an entirely new layer of body horror to an animal that already sort of looks like a raw buried sausage. It feeds by shooting this long, flat, ribbon-like tongue across the mud. Now, if a floating microscopic larva happens to land on this tongue, the physical contact chemically mutates it on the spot. It transforms instantly into an eyeless, microscopic male, which the female then sweeps straight into her mouth, permanently imprisoning it inside her reproductive tract as a literal microscopic sperm factory.
For a long time, the Mariana snailfish was actually the deepest living fish ever discovered, surviving at roughly 27,000 feet. Its skin is so beautifully transparent you can literally see its liver and stomach. But it comes with a pretty fatal design flaw. You see, this fish is held together by the crushing weight of the ocean. If you try to bring it up to study it, removing that immense pressure causes its body to completely lose structural integrity. Within minutes, it literally dissolves, melting right into a gelatinous, unidentifiable puddle of liquid goo. So I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. If the extreme pressures, the total darkness, and the sheer lack of resources in our own earthly oceans can forge these mind-bending, alien-like horrors, what unimaginable biology is waiting for us beneath the ice of Jupiter's moon Europa or in the distant oceans of exoplanets? I really hope this explainer has left you as terrified and fascinated by our deep oceans as I am. It definitely leaves you wondering what else is hiding down there in the dark. Thanks so much for learning with me today.